the Indigenous Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Indigenous Podcast. Pastor Crespo here, along with my brother in arms, Pastor Epher.
Hey,
How are you doing, my friend?
wonderful, Miguel. How are you doing?
Doing well, doing well. So we are here to bring in the new year and to have a little bit of fun, sharing some knowledge with folks. You know, every people group, a lot of these indigenous people groups, we tend to celebrate New Year. But it's interesting, in doing the research and preparing to come here today, I found out that they don't all do it the same way.
Yeah, they have their own way.
That was a little bit of a surprise to me. I don't know about you, but
Well, every culture have their own thing. So,
and we're also going to talk a little bit about how our own cultures celebrate New Year's.
your culture
And
my culture.
that's right. And I have to tell you, listen, in preparation for this, Pastor Epher was just about jumping in his chair, explaining how Filipinos celebrate New Year's, and we're going to talk more about that in a little bit.
Yes, exactly.
But Pastor Epher, before we get into that, I like to start the episodes like this with a little bit of indigenous history.
Go ahead.
You know, one of the things that we tend to forget is how life was. And it gives us a little bit of perspective when we look at history. Let me share with you some of the things that I just did a little search on this day in indigenous history in different places. So let's see. Some of this stuff is not good. But as tragic as it is, some of this is, it's still important to remember.
As in today, like this date.
At this date, today in history, going back.
In history, okay.
So on this day, January 22nd, in 1879, the Dull Knife outbreak ended in northwestern Nebraska after Army soldiers trapped and defeated the remaining group of Northern Cheyenne led by Chief Dull Knife. And boy, it's really rude. You got to turn off your ringer when you're doing a podcast.
Yeah. Mine
So
too.
Chief Dull Knife basically escaped from a prison at Fort Robinson, and at least 30 Cheyenne, including members of the chief's intimate family, were killed in a final battle. So that's a sad note in history. In 1855, January 22nd, 1855, the signing of the Treaty of Point Elliott took place. The Duwamish, the Suquamish, and I hope I don't say this name's wrong, the Snoqualmie and other Puget Sound tribes signed the Treaty of Point Elliott, which basically gave millions of acres to the U.S. government in exchange for reservation lands and the preservation of hunting rights. Yeah, I don't know that was a good deal for them.
Well,
I wonder how they convinced them to do that, but maybe that's the podcast for another day.
Yeah.
Let's see. Here's another one. Iroquois allegiance renewal in 1690. Little local history. In the year 1690, on this day, at Onondaga, New York, the Iroquois Confederacy, the Haudenosaunee, met with English representatives to renew their quote-unquote covenant chain alliance, where they came together against the French during King William's War.
wow.
There's another one. Let's see. I'll share one more. So on this day in history, in the year 1791, during the Northwest Indian War, a war party of Delaware and Wyandot warriors attacked a settlement along the Muskingum River in Ohio, killing approximately 12 settlers in response to encroachment on their lands.
Wow.
You know, if we don't learn from history, we repeat it.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, learning about history tells you a little bit about where you've come from. And it's you know, some of that history, of course, is painful. Some of it is things you think of fondly, but we remember indigenous history, and that's part of the purpose of this podcast.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter, Miguel, when you mentioned about on this very date, back years and years and years ago, Onondaga, we are in the Onondaga Nation right now.
That's right.
The county of Onondaga. So
That's right.
yeah, for those who are watching, we are in the Onondaga land. So
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's a long story. There's a
long
lot
story.
of history there. They owned a lot of land.
Yeah.
They control a lot of land back way back when. All right, so let's do this. We are talking about this episode is really about how different indigenous groups celebrate New Year's, because of course we just got through New Year's.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I was a little bit surprised. I wasn't ready for what I found out anyways. So I know we're going to take some turns here. Why don't you go first? Talk to us a little bit about the group you wanted to share.
Okay, so before I start with the group that I would like to take, where did the New Year word came from actually? You know, I was thinking about, hey, before we talk about people celebrating, or what kind of tribe celebrating this pre-colonial or after colonial? Who invented that New Year?
Well, who invented it? Do you have the answer?
I have no idea. Because we can put New Year as a February or March. We can put that way. But
Yeah.
why January? I have no idea. But
Yeah.
you guys that are watching this podcast, probably you have an idea. Comment in the comment section.
Actually, that's a very good question. If you
Yeah.
know where we came up with January 1 as the beginning of the year, as opposed to
Yeah.
March 2,
It could be March 2 or whatever.
put that in the comment section, because it would be interesting to talk about that a little bit. Of course, we follow the Gregorian calendar and with the months and the days of the year, the days of the months and that kind of thing.
Yeah. But before the Gregorian thing, how did they know that it's a new year?
Yeah.
See?
Well, I think that's why when you look at the indigenous groups,
Yeah.
I think the way they celebrate New Year makes a little bit more sense, because they weren't tying it to a printed calendar.
Yes, exactly.
They were tying it more to the seasons.
With the seasons.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
All right, Miguel. So we're talking about the group of people that lives in the circumference of the North Pole.
Okay.
And
Brr.
we can simply call them as Eskimos.
Okay.
Yeah. But to be specific, it's Inuit and Yupik. Do you know that this Inuit and Yupik, they are widespread from Russia, Alaska, Canada, Greenland, in the circumference of the Arctic pool.
Uh-huh.
So probably because somebody, have you heard about it that Santa Claus coming from North Pole?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, but there's a place right there. I was in Alaska before, like 3 years ago. 3 years in Alaska. There's a small town there called North Pole,
Uh-huh.
and we have a church there. North Pole Seventh-day Adventist, a small church. But
Where?
in Alaska.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yes,
Well,
North Pole.
there's a North Pole, New York.
Yeah,
Okay. Well,
there
that's
is.
what I thought you were talking about. So no, there's a North Pole
New York.
church.
Yeah.
Is that right?
There's also a North Pole Seventh Adventist in Alaska.
Okay.
But not really the North Pole, but it's on the
right.
Arctic
I
almost.
learned something new.
Yes. So yeah. So that's something to be inspired. And
Mhm.
but anyway, Inuit and Yupik, they are related, and they have their New Year. And but I have no idea why they come up with a December 24.
Mhm.
But they celebrate their New Year on December 24, and I have no idea also if it is before colonial or after colonial. But
Yeah.
I just want to make.
I don't know if they had the same
Yeah.
issue, because did they have the colonization up there that, for example, in Canada
Yeah.
and the Americas, that I don't know if they had the same colonization issue
Here's the thing.
that close to the North Pole.
Here's the thing for me. The first ever recorded. Maybe I'm wrong. Hey, you're watching here. You can correct me. But one of the first people that traveled north, they're from Europe, of course. Is Captain Cook. They went there and they're frozen to death. Some of them.
Mm-hmm,
That's the first European people that went there, but they probably not went there to colonize.
mm-hmm,
They're just doing some expedition.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, we can simply say that they are not colonized over there, like not here in the south or central.
Yeah.
Probably they are, or they just adapt the way here in the
Right.
down
Right.
here.
There was definitely some influence there.
Yeah,
That's
some
right.
influence.
That's right.
But if I am, for example, if I am a colonizer, why will I colonize the north? You cannot plant rice. You can,
Well,
Yeah,
you're making me. I don't want to say what I'm thinking, but yeah, you're right.
yeah.
It's a little too cold.
Yeah, and that was like 14 in the year 1400s.
That's right.
Nobody knows about oil drill over there.
Right.
No sneeze, no sea rigs over there. Why you have to conquer over there?
That's right.
So of course you have to reach this beautiful land right here down here.
That's right.
So Inuit and Yupik, they are these people that are surrounding the circumference, and
That's
they
right.
celebrate their New Year. They call it the time and place of joy, and also celebration of giving gift to the children,
Mm-hmm.
and part of their unity, and also honoring spirits like the sea goddess, Sidna.
Mm-hmm.
They have a sea goddess Sidna,
Uh-huh.
and what I know, we have a sea god called Poseidon,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a Greek thing. We don't
Right. Right.
think that, but yeah, they have their sea god, and for them, it's not a party. It's about community and support for everyone, because when you have a community support and gathering, then you can check each other. Hey, how are you? How's stuff doing with
Right.
you? And they help each other.
So it's the time for family gatherings.
Time for
right?
family gathering.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they consider that New Year.
Well, I think
Yeah.
that's the way they celebrate their renewal. But
Yeah.
So let's move on to another group because this is interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were aware of this. So when you get to places like Africa and North Africa specifically, here I'm looking at.
Okay.
There's a group of people in North Africa called the Berbers.
Berbers.
Right?
Wow.
Now there would be in the area, say, of Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, and they celebrate their version of New Year's somewhere between January 12th and 14th.
12.
Now, this tradition, the way that celebration goes back for thousands of years.
Yeah.
The thing that I found interesting, anytime you celebrate a New Year's, there's always celebration, family gatherings, and that kind of thing.
Yes.
But here is something interesting about the Berbers that they have a different yearly count than we do. So for example, in 2026, right now, it's 2026.
Yeah.
We're saying it's the year 2026.
Okay.
The Berbers in Northern Africa, on their calendar, it's the year 2976.
Interesting.
So it's just interesting the way they've been keeping track of time there.
Yeah.
But of course, their New Year celebrations, again, same thing. Family feasts, bonfires, traditional music, and really they're very much their culture is in tune with nature. So the reason that they, a lot of these cultures will pick the December 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 timeframe because it is the shortest day of the year.
Interesting.
In terms of the short, and I'm sorry, I said that wrong. It's the shortest time of daylight.
Daylight of the year. Yeah.
So it's the shortest amount of daylight, and then the days start to get longer again in terms of the sun. So they tie these to New Year rather than what we were talking about earlier. This whole notion of January 1 being based on a calendar system. So all right, so that's that. What do we got next? What are the peoples that we talk about?
I know that I'll be talking about this interesting Native American from the North American. Or the Americans. But I would like to insert first.
Okay.
You always hear it, Chinese New Year. I don't know if indigenous, but I don't know why they have their Chinese New Year is in February, not January.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you think about that?
I did not. Did you do any looking into? I did not look into that.
In the Philippines, anywhere in the world, there's always Chinatown.
Yeah.
So Chinese New Year, oh man, that's big for them because they have a lot of firecrackers and so forth and so on. But I'm just curious, was it practiced before? Because even them was colonized as well.
Yeah.
But if it is colonial, they're supposed to be practicing a New Year's like based on a Christian way, January 1.
Well, yeah, but I think so. I would say this: when you look at the different indigenous groups, the history of colonization or subjugation or control, it's different for different groups. So so you come from the Philippines, the Spaniards, Puerto Rico, Spaniards. In the Americas, it was the Europeans. The Chinese, if I remember my history, it was the Japanese.
The Japanese. Oh, interesting.
So the Chinese were imagine how large China is as a country, but there was a time when the Japanese took over, and so they were by different groups, and so there are different cultures and things. So it's hard to, at least in my mind, you'd have to do some deep study. But some of these groups have traditions that go back, and they've worked hard to keep them. So even in the United States, Native Americans, they've worked hard to keep their traditions because others worked hard to erase it. And so I don't know. I think with these New Year celebrations, so when we look at, for example, the Chinese, as you were saying, I'm not sure that. I would suspect, and again, if someone has the answer, I would suspect though that that those groups have fought to keep their original systems. I would think. Of course, there's been some changes. I mean, look, in the U.S., we celebrate New Year's on January 1.
January 1,
and we're doing it by the calendar,
based on the
Gregorian calendar,
Christian
and
thing.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's not even a Christian thing. It's not that.
Yeah, because it's
Greek influence.
Yeah, Greek influence.
But we base it on a calendar, a date, versus, and it's probably loosely built on the seasons as well.
Okay.
But the indigenous groups base their celebration, it looks like, at least what I was looking at, on the seasons.
Yeah.
Not the calendar. So it's just an interesting thing.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm just curious. That's why I'm inserting it, because we're talking about New Year.
Yeah. If we have any Chinese watchers, let us know.
Yeah.
And we'd love to hear that.
Yeah. Please comment it in the comment below. And also, let's head to the ocean, going to America. So in America,
right,
at least we have a lot of tribes right here in the United States alone. In United States alone, and then go somewhere in over the border north, we have, as a matter of fact, let me mention one particular nation, Oneida. We have Oneida in
Canada
as well. So but anyway, New Year for the Haudenosaunee, I call it for them, for the 5 nation, they prefer Haudenosaunee than Iroquois.
Yeah,
what's the reason? So for the Haudenosaunee, they have their New Year, and their New Year
is it on January 1?
Not really.
No,
it's based on harvest season, especially corn.
Right.
So
it's a more common sense approach to a New Year.
Yeah. So when they harvest corn, that's a New Year for them. And they have a big thing about that, because it's very important when they harvest corn, because we know they have 3 sisters. That's special for them,
Yeah.
And so and Onondaga, they probably been influenced by the colonizer. So probably this is your first time to hear this, but according to my sources, every first day of January, they will send their children here in this very land that we are living right now, Onondaga. They will send their children, hey, go into the neighborhood and just knock on the door and just say, New Year. Or they call
that's their version of Happy New Year?
Yeah, that's their vision of Happy New Year.
Yeah.
So they probably, I might be wrong, adapted it during the colonization.
Yeah.
Because they send their children, and the most funny part, they will give their children's pillowcase, and they knock at the door, and then those people will give them anything, gift and support like that.
Right.
Children.
Yeah.
And they are doing that in the nation. I have one church over there, and somewhere in Nidro, and they are doing that.
So they still practice that tradition.
They practice that tradition. And when I was asked, hey, did you practice that pre-colonial or after or during colonialism? And he said that, well, as far as I know, even my great-great-great-grandmother, they're practicing it in the 1800s. So when there's a little, as a kid, you just get pillowcase, go knock on the door of your aunts or maybe neighbor. Hey, New Year! They called it New Year.
Yeah.
But the act of doing is called Newing.
Okay.
See? Newing.
So that's part of their celebration.
Yeah, that's part of their celebration.
All right. Well, interesting. So so now let's move forward to Peru, Bolivia.
Go ahead.
The Andean people groups, the indigenous folks there. This is interesting. They mark their New Year on June 21st.
Wow.
That's the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. And so that begins what they call their Andean New Year. And they of course have their gods that they worship.
Yeah.
God Inti. I think there's places that are tourist attractions now that were ancient cities, like Machu Picchu. Places where they go to get together and do their different ceremonies and the like. But it's an interesting thing that they are also worshiping the seasons.
Yeah.
But because of where they're located on the globe, it's the renewal happens at a different time than it would happen for us here on this hemisphere and this part of the globe where we live.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we're going over this.
Yeah.
To recognize that different indigenous peoples celebrate New Year's in a different way. So now you're talking about the North American Native American people, how they celebrate it, and there's the New Ying is how you call it. So that's something that it'd be interesting to find out its roots there.
Yes.
But we're talking about how they celebrate and stick to the seasons. Let me ask you a question, Pastor Epher. And I teased this a little bit.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about how Filipinos celebrate New Year's.
I will.
It's not a big deal for you guys.
Yeah.
You guys don't really celebrate.
I will going to go to the shorter version because the long version we will finish it probably tomorrow. But anyway, I have no idea colonial of how the Filipino celebrate Christmas because pre-colonial we're not even called Filipino. We're called just like a combination of Malay, Indonesian, and Aita. That's what our ancestors from the Polynesians.
Okay.
So I have no idea of how these tribes celebrate New Year. But during the colonialism in March 15, 1621, I still remember my history right there. So those Filipino, check it. All right. So Spanish came, like the way they came in your place, and they introduced this New Year. But here's the thing. Here's the kick of how we Filipinos celebrate New Year. New Year will not be a New Year without celebrating Christmas.
Okay.
Because Christmas in the Philippines, probably, if I'm wrong, probably I'm wrong. Correct me, Filipinos. Probably only the Philippines that celebrate Christmas from the month that end with bear. So what month that end with bear? September, October, November, December.
Yeah.
So
they celebrate Christmas for 4 months?
Yes, sir. So the moment
I got to become Filipino.
Yeah. The moment that September came, oh man, you can hear the streets loud noise. Philippines, they love to sing video game. You've been there.
Yeah.
They sing loud. So the moment that September kicks in, you can see the lanterns. The street is decorated with street lights and so forth like that, and Christmas trees in the malls, in the parks. From September, the longest Christmas is in the Philippines. Probably, I don't know if there's another country that celebrate that long. Yeah. So, and then that comes with the traditions, And then after the Christmas, December 31st, people will gather around. We will kick off and kick out the year that will be passing by. With a loud bang. Oof, it's like a battle, like you're in Iraq. Yeah. Here you just went somewhere in the park that probably the fire department just shoot many firecrackers or go to New York Times Square, something like that. But in the Philippines, every cities, every street, every avenue, every barrios, every villages have their own firecrackers.
Right.
Yes.
So do they celebrate it on January 1 or
mid? It's like 31st of December.
Right. So that's
midnight.
But the end of the calendar year,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah. Okay.
So that's how we celebrate with eating, drinking, and the hospital are so busy during that time because there's a lot of people that are being exploded with their firecrackers, their hands cut down, their face.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Mercy.
Every year.
I take it back. I don't want to be Filipino.
Yeah. So that's what's going on.
Let me share with you a little bit. We're going somewhere with this. All these different indigenous groups and the way they study. In Puerto Rico, Puerto Ricans, Hispanics. I think I find it interesting. I find that there are some indigenous groups that are more calm, relaxed, more reserved.
Yeah.
I would say that, like, for example, North American, Native Americans tend to be more reserved. And it's I'm sure it's due to their experience as a people.
Yeah.
But when you start going into the islands, they're not reserved. And Puerto Ricans love any opportunity to throw a party.
Wow.
And so Christmas, New Year's, we celebrate it on the calendar, 31st, January 1st, 31st of December, January 1st.
Is that tradition?
Yep. But there's some interesting things that you may, some of this is a little bit funny, but it's done. So here, for example, there is cleansing rituals that can be done where you throw water out of the window to wash away bad energy. We can be very superstitious people. I think maybe Filipinos can be very superstitious. Yeah. Lucky grapes, eating 12 grapes at midnight, one for each month to ensure prosperity. Here's one. I'm not making this up. Lucky underwear.
Oh.
So you wear red underwear on New Year's for love and keeping money in your pockets for abundance.
I will say something after you. Yeah.
And so here's I got two more. How is New Year's celebrated? Well, one way is leaping backward into the sea at midnight. And I have no idea why, but it's supposed to ward off evil spirits. Okay. Here's one. I tell you, Puerto Ricans as Hispanic, we love to party and we find any excuse. Here's one. And New Year tradition, which would be on the 31st into the 1st of January.
Okay.
A suitcase walk.
Wow.
Okay. That means you walk around the block with a suitcase in order to attract travel in the new year.
Really?
Yeah. Of course, look, we love to eat. We love to get together, have a good time. So usually New Year celebrations can involve food, family, lots of noise.
Yeah.
We're not blowing our hands off with firecrackers. Now, that's not a thing. I mean, maybe one or two people do it, but for the most part, that's not an issue. If people are going to the hospital, it's unfortunately because maybe they partied a little bit too much.
Okay.
But it's just interesting.
Eating and drinking.
Yeah. So it's just interesting the way different people groups celebrate. And the one thing that we know is that most of the indigenous groups are different than the European influenced groups of people that they're following the calendar, where most indigenous groups follow the seasons.
Yes.
Now, to me, the seasons make more sense.
Yeah.
But you find that the calendars tend to fall close to that. That's why, I think it's December 31st is the shortest day of the year in terms of sunlight. And I think it's the 21st or the 24th. But we find them, those are reasons for celebration. And of course, then there's the longest day of sunlight in the year, which is for us, it's sometime in the summer in June, I believe. So
the longest what?
The longest day of sun, the day with the most sunlight.
Yeah.
The longest day of the year.
Where was that?
Is in June.
Where is that? Here?
Here. Probably in other parts of the world, it's not. But here,
I will tell you. Yeah. I will tell you. That's nothing compared to where I'm from.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, in Alaska.
oh, that's right. You spent some time in Alaska.
Yeah.
That's right.
I have a video. You can check it out in my own YouTube channel. But I was doing a video. I'm posting a video. I think still there in my YouTube. 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and the sun is like sunset. But 2 o'clock in the morning, at 12 midnight, you can see people because they cannot sleep because the sun is still there. They just mowing the lawn 12 o'clock midnight. Yeah, especially in Anchorage. No. In Fairbanks.
Okay.
Yeah. Walmart there is open. Everyone there is still like early in the morning or almost at night, but because the sun's still there.
Yeah.
That's what we call it, a midnight sun.
Yeah.
It's only there in Alaska. You try to experience this. It's beautiful, but sometimes weird.
Well, so we've looked at some of these indigenous groups and how they celebrate New Year. But what's the point of New Year? And what are one of the benefits of New Year? And I think that's part of the reason for this discussion. We've been having a little bit of fun with it. But what does New Year represent? And maybe that's a question that we want to ask you to think about.
Yeah.
New Year's can represent a new beginning.
A beginning, yeah.
It could be, have you ever said this, Epher, Pastor Epher? Said, I'm just so glad to put this year behind me. Because, for example, maybe you had some bad experience in that year. Some things didn't go well.
Yeah.
I want to close the book on this year and open the book on another year. And I pray that this year is better than the last year.
Yeah.
So the idea that New Year is an opportunity for you to leave behind something negative and for you to look forward to something good, something positive.
Yeah.
And so, the Bible talks about that type of thing.
Yeah.
The Jews, another indigenous group where their homeland is, they have a way of celebrating New Year's as well. And so there's some things, and there's something I wanted to share with you. I had it written down here because there was a few things that, I don't want to say it from memory and say it wrong.
Yeah.
So in the Jewish tradition, they have a almost like a 10-day season of celebration that leads into this whole beginning anew and ending of the year. And it starts, they call them the high and holy days, where they celebrate this. And of course, back in the Bible, in the days of the Old Testament, these type of celebrations were accompanied with things like offerings, where they would make offerings to God. They would do things like, there was a portion of those 10 days where they would have to spend time fasting. They would have to spend time seeking their own hearts for forgiveness.
Yeah.
And also for to ask God to forgive them, but also then to start fresh. So I'm using the term wiping the slate clean, although you're not going to find that in the Bible. But basically, it's a way where they would do that to wipe their slate clean. And so there's a couple of holidays here, holy days, holy days. But there's a couple of holy days that you need to be aware of if you're going to understand a little bit about the way the Jews celebrate this whole idea of renewal and New Year. And that is Rosh Hashanah, which becomes this kind of the beginning of what they call the days of awe, but it leads directly to Yom Kippur, or the Day of Atonement. Now, why am I sharing this? The Day of Atonement is very interesting if you read it in the Bible. It's and I know you know about this, Epher. It's back in the days of Moses, they had the tabernacle. This it's like a traveling tent.
Yes,
and it was a rectangular shaped tent. And they had different compartments in there, and they would do offerings.
Yeah.
And you know that on during those times leading up to the Day of Atonement, there would be a time where they would be asking for forgiveness of sins. All the sins of the people would be concentrated on that one point, that one place. And because they were sprinkling blood on parts of that tent during the year, that's when they cleansed the sanctuary. And they actually did so it wasn't just a spiritual cleaning.
Yom Kippur,
it was a physical cleaning.
Yes.
But this is what I love about it. What I love about it is that it was a reminder and an opportunity to clean your slate with God and to start all over again.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. One thing that I would like to share also is that when we're talking about New Year, of course, we are talking about New Year in the perspective of what we have researched, what we have read. But I would like to ask you a personal question, Miguel, before we end this conversation. For you personally, without referring to what you have read, what you have, or reference or book, whatever.
Yeah.
What is New Year for you personally?
Well, it's a good question. In some ways, it doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
In the way that I don't look at the calendar as starting over.
Yeah.
But in other ways, it's very valuable.
Okay.
So for me, I will tell you, and this year maybe more than other years, but it's allowed me to say, okay, I want to reflect on the last year. How was it? What there were some very good highs that I had this last year. So last year I had the privilege to go back to the Philippines.
Wow.
And
Good
so
for you.
spend time in Manila and sharing the gospel with the people there. Just wonderful.
You went there 2 times.
So it's just for me it was an amazing experience. But went traveling and preaching and sharing the gospel. And that's one of the things we want to on this podcast as we are connecting and trying to reach and share with indigenous folk that, for example, going to the Philippines, I'm not sharing the white man's God.
Yeah.
I'm sharing the God of creation,
The God of creation.
the Creator
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
And it's just a privilege to do it. But so for me, New Year's represents, I reflect on the last year, and I'm thankful to the Creator. I'm thankful that He allowed me to do some of these things.
Wonderful.
And then I look forward in the new year and say, okay, Lord, where are we going?
Yeah.
What are we doing? So yeah, for me, in some ways, it's you can look at it and say, well, it's just another day. But in other ways, you can look at it, it is a time. New Year's gives you an opportunity to stop, reflect, and maybe change course, maybe do something new.
Yeah.
And it's psychological because it's just another day.
Yeah.
But at least you have that opportunity. So I appreciate that to start new again. I don't know. How about you? When you think of New Year's, what is it? Does it have any meaning for
New
you?
Year,
Other than setting off firecrackers?
Yeah, I might be biased if I may allow here to use my own biases. New Year is influence. The influence of New Year to me is because of my tradition. You know, I grew up that in New Year, like what you have mentioned a while ago, that you must have at least coins in your pocket and so on and so forth. All those are like traditions. But do you know that? Well, I'm laughing at the head of my mind when you're mentioning it because we have almost the same thing. In New Year's time, we need to have anything that is round, fruit that are round. I don't know if you have that. You have to fruit. So when you go to the people's houses, because in New Year, in the Philippines, you don't sleep. No more sleeping. So you go one house to house and visit them, or go straight to their table and get something to eat. And every fruit that you can see there is all round fruits. No longer, no rectangular, no oblong fruit, but just round fruit. Okay. That's why oranges is very common on New Year's Eve. And do you know? Chinese has the same thing like that.
Is that right? Yeah.
When we have these firecrackers, Chinese have firecrackers. So I do believe that Philippines, when we celebrate our New Year, it was been influenced by our neighbor Chinese.
Of course. Yeah, China's only that far away from the Philippines.
Yeah, I know.
Map.
But for me, as I grew up, I become mature. New Year for me is really not a thing.
Yeah.
You know? Like, for example, hey, your birthday is around 3 days from now is your birthday. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
The moment my birthday comes, I go to my own room as much as possible. I don't want anyone bothering me in my birthday, and spend that whole day as if I can just be myself and thanking the Lord so much. Because for me, birthday and New Year is the same.
Okay.
Like, for example, every potluck that we have in Vienna Church. Okay, before we pray, who have birthdays this week? And then we pray, happy birthday, and a happy New Year. That's how I do it. Happy birthday to you. I said, and a happy, because it's your new year.
Yeah.
It's another
a new beginning.
year of your life.
Yeah.
It's a beginning. So New Year don't make sense to me, but birthday is a new year to me because it's another year for my life.
Yeah. Well, I think
Thank you, Lord.
That's why for Indigenous, a lot of Indigenous groups, they set their New Year on the seasons, not a calendar.
Yes.
And so when you sow, when you reap the harvest, and then you start over again.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. It makes sense. There is, as we've had a little bit of fun in this episode, just talking a little bit about different people groups. This has been more educational than anything else.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can leave the podcast without really talking a little bit more, just as we end here, about the spiritual aspect of the idea of a new year.
Yeah.
And in the Christian context, you don't have to wait for a new year to start over again.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we look at January 1st, I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to exercise, or I'm going to do this more.
Resolutions.
And I'm waiting till that date to start. I know people that have done that. They know, I need to lose weight, but I'm going to wait until January 1 to start. And that could be months away. Look, the beauty about the Christian experience is that you don't have to wait 365 days to start over again.
Yes.
You had a bad year, you had a bad month, a week. If you had a bad day, you can start over again every single day.
I agree with that.
And there was a text that you wanted me to add here. I want to show that scripture.
Go ahead.
And this we'll kind of end it here.
Yeah.
But Lamentations, this is from the Holy Bible, Lamentations chapter 3, verse 22 and 23. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. Great is your faithfulness.
Wow, that's
wonderful. As we go into the new year, we want to encourage you to take the opportunity, right? To take stock of what has been and think about now what you'd like to see happen going into 2026. Do you have the opportunity to make it great? I would say that spiritually speaking, if you want to have a great year, you have to do it with the Creator leading the way. And if you had a bad day and your things are falling apart, the beauty of it is you don't have to wait till January 1.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait until the Harvest Festival. You can do it every single day because renewal with the Creator is just a prayer away.
Yes.
That's right.
Exactly, Miguel. So, folks, guys, ladies and gents who's are watching this or about to watch this podcast, comment below or whatever you think or something that you would like to add or there's something that we have said that off. Comment below and we'll see and we'll discuss it together because the good book says, come, let us reason together.
That's right. Thank you for joining us. Happy New Year. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.